many of you know one another already, but let me just do some very brief introductions. So starting at the end, Arvind Natrajan is indeed Senior Manager ICS, former Master Mariner, leads on global policy on seafarer training and represents ship owners at the IMO.
I just wanted to say that is indeed me in the photograph.
Perfect. Dr. Joanne-Eugenia? No, it's not good. It's not good. Okay, well, apologies. Bakouni is Marsk's training leader, training, learning, and development manager, also an academic leader specializing in maritime HR. And your thesis, I believe, is on organizational behavior and leadership, so very pertinent to your role. And then Captain Souman Chatterjee is a master mariner with BSM, has over 20 years of tanker experience, and recognized for his expertise in marine operations, safety management, and regulatory compliance. And then finally, and by no means least, Ishwar Narayanan, apologies, is a chief engineer with Hafnia. You've also 2 decades of service on VLCCs, product tankers, dual fuel LNG vessels, and also obviously have huge experience in engineering operations and regulatory compliance. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. So we heard from Lee and Dan their views on how we're essentially supporting seafarers with the transition that we're all living, and of the degree to which the pieces of the puzzle are fitting together. And what we're here now to do is to see how we agree from your various different perspectives. And if I may, I'd really like to start with the ship experience. So starting with you two, could you tell us, and it's really up to you what you would like to focus on, but a bit of your experience of sailing with dual alternative fuels. What's worried you? What surprised you? What have been your key learnings? And this can be in relation to anything: workload, bunkering, extreme weather, that human autonomy interface, emergency response.
Good morning, everyone. It's been exciting and challenging, both at the same time. Exciting because it's a new experience, and challenging because there's a learning curve to any new experience. So, first of all, in terms of challenges, I feel the last 4 years I've been with dual fuel vessels, LNG powered, that engine reliability is not the same as I had when we were sailing on conventional engines alone. Multiple breakdowns, sometimes more than 2 breakdowns in a voyage, due to the main engine components being maybe exposed to different types of fuels. Also, main engine fuel injectors, flow limit valves, likewise. And all these failures lead to more workload for the engineers. UMS class vessels, we have had watches round the clock for a whole voyage together. And sometimes it's just a niggle. Engines have stopped. The reason being is we just need a reboot of the automation system. The reboot of the automation system is a 10-15 minutes, matter of 10-15 minutes, but you can well imagine stopping a vessel in a river passage or in pilotage for 10-15 minutes is a nightmare. So these are my experiences in brief, and I wouldn't ask my learned friend to add on to it.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. To add on to what Mr. Souman has told, again, starting with bunkering, yes, it has been challenging as well as a learning curve. Bunkering is one thing where we are still not yet ready for availability of bunkers in all the ports. So we still have to find convenient ports where the price is competitive and there is availability of bunker barges. So this is a challenge which as a seafarer we are coming across. And another one is the usage of bunker fuel. How frequently are we using these fuels on these engines? So that is one area where charterers takes a call, where how long are we running the engines on marine fuels or on dual fuel or on the LNG fuels. So this is a challenge for seafarers as we are facing, because when they say run it maybe for a month on conventional fuels, marine diesel engines, and suddenly we are in a situation when they ask to change back to LNG operations. Already this fuel nozzles or other components are clogged or it is burnt out. So that is one challenge we are facing across while with bunkering. That means you bunker for maybe in this month and maybe next bunker is after 6 months. So that is quite a long time since that is. So it depends on the supply of bunkers and availability. And the call by the charterers when to use these bunkers. So that is a big say by the charterers, and as a seafarers we face the challenges where if we are not using LNG for quite some time, these engines doesn't operate so friendly. So and also the wear of wear of these what you call this auxiliary equipments and other parts which has not been used for long. So that is a challenge which we are facing. Second thing is, as Mr. Simon has told, the automation part has increased. That means software. It is whole dependent on software systems, and there are frequent upgrades of this one, which is quite challenging again. So if we need any troubleshooting, we have to go back to the manufacturers for remote troubleshootings. So again, that is password protected. So as we are heavily reliant on the makers to get solutions to these kind of problems, because sometimes the software issues or any parameter change requires authorization from the manufacturers. So again, like how Simon has told, the challenges in between a critical passage can be quite challenging if you are facing such issues. Another one exactly is the increased maintenance on these components, because with LNG operations, what we have faced is that the manufacturers is yet to come up with a more advanced technology where the maintenance has reduced. It has actually increased more with more clogging of fuel valves or the nozzles. Then the downtime to get these procured these spares is quite high. So you order this, maybe we are getting it after 6 months or 7 months. So there is a lot of lead time to procure these spares. So these challenges are what we face across. And training part from what we see, if you see the new engineers or the people who are joining, they have to be, even though they are having the basic training, like someone pointed out in the audience also, there is a gap between the training, what they are going through, and what is actually the system or what is actually the engines require. So, so there is a gap between the person who is coming with the basic training and what, when they come on board, there is a gap which we are facing across. So the people on board have to train them, which is going to take some time. So these are the challenges what we come across.
Well, I had a couple of follow-ons too, but let me ask you, Joanna, does what you've just heard align with what you're hearing in your role, what you're experiencing? And then I can follow up.
So, well, first of all, let me just say that it's so refreshing to sit in a panel with the people who are actually on board the vessels, right? So in many panels we don't see that, and I think that sometimes we are taking decisions that affect the people who at the end of the day are going to operate that equipment without having them in mind. So I think it's very refreshing to have that perspective on a panel. Now, secondly, so we as Maersk Training, of course, we are part of the big Maersk, but also we are a commercial training organization. So this means that we are training other companies as well in our training centers. And we hear many things from those seafarers that are coming to our training centers to be trained on ITF code training, but also on methanol related training, which is also our expertise. And the main things that we are hearing is not, oh, we don't want this training or we don't want to learn. It's nothing like that. The resistance we are seeing is that we don't want another generic awareness level training. So that's the main thing that we are seeing. And another part that we are seeing is that we don't want a 600 pages manual that we have to read just to go on board a vessel. So I think that my reflection from what we have been seeing from those reactions has to do with the cognitive load that people on board nowadays have to face. And that cognitive load comes from the many trainings that they have to take, but also from their realities on board. So we talked about automation, and automation is a good thing, but at the same time, it can create a certain level of fatigue. So we've been hearing about alarm fatigue, for example, and it's not something that's out in the air. It's a concept. It's true, and it's happening. So this is something that we need to keep in mind when we are discussing about training. That training, more training, doesn't necessarily mean better training. So we have to take decisions keeping in mind that more is not always better. And the other thing is that alternative fuels have a different risk profile. So when we are training people about those risk profiles, we need to understand that it's not only the knowledge level training that they need to know, the chemical properties of methanol, for example. It's not only that, it's also recognizing the hazards associated. So one of the aha moments that we usually have in our training centers is when we are doing the firefighting part of the training, and we're actually going on the firegrounds, and people have to experience for the first time methanol fire, which is near invisible to the eye. So that's a completely new reality. So I think that to conclude what I'm saying, I think that people want to be sent into a new operational reality, having the confidence that they are safe to do so.
Thank you so much. Arvind, I don't know if you have anything in response to, I might add some additional questions for you to work with. So what I'm hearing, these examples that you both gave to start with were fascinating, and I think presumably very clear examples. You wouldn't expect to find those challenges in any kind of basic training. They seem very practical, real sort of logistical challenges. And I'm also taken by the point on, feedback on we don't want huge manuals, we need information at the right time. So I'd love thoughts from Arvind or any of you as to how we can innovate, I suppose. Also, it might not even be innovation only, it's also about maximizing the learning that can happen on board, because part of what I'm also interested in is also the effect of all of this in your relationships on board and the opportunity to learn from one another, particularly when you join a vessel, there's handover periods, that sense of mentoring. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on here, but how do we essentially get the information that's appropriate at the right time? And yeah, let's start with that. That's a good start.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. And I must say that it was very refreshing to hear from active seafarers. I move in circles where I only interact with policymakers or regulatory development people. And it was refreshing to hear your experience, your practical experience. I truly wasn't aware that commercial entities have a say in what kind of fuel you use on board the ship. I did not know that. But to come back to your question, I recognize the challenges that you have mentioned, and what I feel, the way that we can go ahead with equipping our seafarers to work on the ships is, I think there's some very good guidance that the IMO is preparing in this case. And the idea that we are having is that we have to make a distinction between the training and between specific familiarization. And that was what Chief Engineer Ishwar was talking about, that there is a gap between what the seafarers are trained and what they confront when they go on board the ships. So the idea that we, ICS as part of the Maritime Just Transition Task Force is trying to project is that the training which eventually will become mandatory for these particular fuels has to be very generic in nature. Basically to understand foundational aspects of using or working with these fuels. But the importance of specific familiarization, so familiarization with the technology on board or with the equipment on board or with automation systems as well, because you pointed out also the issues with automation. The importance of that cannot be underestimated, and that is where I think the industry is really stepping ahead. We know that the industry is always much ahead of regulatory development. So I think the importance of the specific familiarization which the industry is providing, shipping companies which they are providing, I think that is going to be critical in ensuring that our seafarers work in a safe environment. And here I will say that familiarization is not something which we want to burden our seafarers that they have to do it when they actually step on board a ship. That's not when familiarization should happen. The familiarization should happen before, in the ship's office, when you're preparing your seafarers to get on board the ships, to understand the systems there, before they actually work with the technology. So that's my perspective, that the training will always be generic, but it's the familiarization which the company is providing, which the industry is providing, which will play a vital role in the future, I believe.
Thanks so much. So I'm really going off in all sorts of directions here. I'll try and stick to the script. May I come back to you both? So you gave us, as I said, some really great examples there of your experiences and some challenges you've faced. We heard this morning from Simon Grange from ISWAN, and I don't know if you've seen the survey he mentioned, or maybe even responded to it, a report that was out a while ago about seafarers' perspectives and experience of decarbonisation. And he was saying that there was excitement and also a concern about blame. And it was really important that we had the confidence to ask questions, and that kind of relates to the point on curiosity, and that's important in the previous session. What's your experience, not just in terms of those practical examples you gave, but of the crew's, I'm not going to say morale exactly, but like where is the mood in I mean, of course it changes, but how have you seen that maybe shift, or are you optimistic, pessimistic? What's the sort of human reading of it?
To address your question, it all comes about the work and rest hours. If you are having more breakdowns, that means it is going to take a toll on your rest hours. So the conventional fuels, as we told, if, for example, if you have a rough weather or something like that, you have one trip of a engine in a gas mode. It takes 2 hours minimum to put back system back into a gas mode. So if you just imagine this is happening at night when the engine is unmanned, you have to have the duty engineer going down to the engine room, manning it, and then he takes 2 hours of his rest hours, and that will take again compensatory rest of his for another couple of hours. And just to put it across, that it is going to affect his rest hours definitely, and the next day's work plan is also going to get affected. So these kind of scenarios are very frequent with these dual fuel engines. So if you are asking me whether it is affecting the morale or anything of the crew, definitely it is an additional workload for the engineers, because we don't have extra engineers just because we have extra machinery. It's the same number of people or crew on board, but the machineries have increased, the plant maintenance have increased. You have more machineries, more maintenance, then the safety checks for all these machineries have come across, and that is also an increased burden on the seafarers or on the people who are working. So definitely it is an extra load on them, and it is not going to come down. So this is what I personally feel.
To add to what Mr. Ishwar said, and on a different line, we just heard about familiarization before joining the ship. I feel, and I think everybody should understand that medical preparedness and training needs to incorporate the use of alternative fuels, like to account for cryogenic burns or exposure to toxic vapors, chemical burns. These need to be part of familiarization, which we have, but it should be affected by in a more statutory way or regulatory way.
I just wanted to pick up, and I don't want to drop anyone in it, but you have raised the point about optimum manning, and it sounds, there is a logic there that things are getting more complex, and yet we're not increasing the number of people. How much of that is a key issue? Anyone who'd like to take a view on that? Is it something that could potentially change?
I can't predict if it's going to change, but what I can say is this: under this whole decarbonization agenda that we're talking about, I see a lot of opportunities to make this industry attractive for young seafarers to enter into the industry. I see that, and perhaps they may disagree, but under this whole decarbonization agenda, there are so many aspects of making ships operations efficient, ship designs efficient, and then the possibility that we have so much of new technologies and equipment on board. And I believe that the profile of a seafarer, as I knew some time ago, and even as it is now, the profile of a seafarer is going to change. We are going to see a differently abled, a differently skilled, I'm sorry about the word, I meant to say a differently skilled seafarer that is going to look very different from the seafarers as we know. And this represents opportunities. Probably we might see some new roles on board as probably an efficiency officer, and this could transition to a role to some shore-based roles as well. So I do see the possibility of having a chief efficiency officer in companies to look at the general efficiency strategy of the company. This represents a lot of opportunities. Further, I think that there is also the possibility that we would see seafarers transitioning from on-board roles to shore-based roles a bit faster. So I think the days when seafarers used to have a ship-based career for 20 years, 25 years, and I'm sure there are so many here who had that career, that is going to change as seafarers quickly transition to shore-based roles, which are providing more opportunities in several different organizations or profiles. So I see good opportunities here, and in my opinion, I would say that we are now going through an interesting time where the industry is going through a very good, very interesting transition, where I believe that this would be attractive to young seafarers entering into this industry. That's my core belief in this. Thank you.
May I ask a personal question? Not to you, Arvind. Do you have children? Yes. Would you like? Are you planning for them to potentially follow in your footsteps?
I have 2 daughters. My elder daughter is pursuing her M.Pharm course, and younger daughter is in 10th. I leave it up to her. She's free to do whatever she wants.
Well, I do have a young boy, and I have given him a steady dose of Pirates of the Caribbean in the hope that he would take a seafaring career. But he's quite taken up by this by these new kind of movies that talk about space technology. So The Martian, he was quite taken up. So he likes to be a navigator, but a space navigator, I guess. So it's the next best thing, I would say. It's close by.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I completely. I think no one would dispute there is huge opportunity, and it's interesting to see how it plays out, because at the same time we still talk about a real recruitment and retention challenge, and that's part of the just transition too. And Arvind, I don't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about. I know that the work of the task force has come up a little bit this morning. Whether so again, in my day job, the just transition and this sort of policy language is all around me, but I'm just wondering if it plays out. Is it a term that means much to seafarers? Does it mean anything? Or where are we at with it? Is it working? What is it? Do we have agreement on what the just transition is doing?
I'll be happy to answer that, but I'm curious to hear opinions from others first before I answer. So if anyone has an opinion about it.
Well, we hope that with more time, technology will improve and our challenges and niggles reduce. And then, yes, why not? We need a carbon-free world. So we are up for the changes, yes.
Well, I mean, from the response you gave, I guess the term just transition does not seem to be in the consciousness of most of the people. But if I may explain, just transition is a term that has been defined by the International Labour Organization, and what it actually means is a way of greening the economy in a manner that no one is left behind. This particular term, the just transition, just an equitable transition, has been adopted by the International Maritime Organization in their net zero strategy as well. But I'm completely aware that not one word of what I said has really registered with any of you. So if I can give an example, and I can give a personal example, I qualified to be a master on a ship in 2005. And I then got my first promotion in 2007. And that was the time when a new technology was just making its way into mainstream shipping, which was electronic charts. I've learned all my career on traditional paper charts, and with the advent of electronic charts, I found it a challenge to adapt to this new way of using this navigation aid. It was a huge challenge for me, and by 2013, electronic charts became mandatory on board most ships. And I won't say that it was the cause, but I would say that it hastened my decision to eventually leave active seafaring and go into shore-based roles, because I just couldn't cope up with this new technology. And I felt that I did need some more support, which was lacking for me to adjust to this new role. But to transpose that into current context, we are talking about new technologies, these new alternative fuels coming into this industry, and we have this whole workforce, more than 2 million seafarers who aren't quite aware or who aren't quite equipped to adjust to this new technology, this new working style that's going to be coming in the future. So just transition is about making sure that we don't leave these seafarers behind. We give them the necessary skills, we give them the necessary support to ensure that they still remain relevant when these new technologies become more and more mainstream. So that's what just transition is all about. And within the Maritime Just Transition initiative, which is headed by our task force, and which I must thank the Lloyds Register Foundation has supported us immensely in this. This is exactly what we are doing to provide that support in these new technologies and these new alternative fuels that are coming into the maritime industry.
Thank you, Arvind. I think that's a fabulous explanation of that framework. Joanna, it's really important that as an industry we have that just transition policy framework, and then the detail of it is working through of course, it would help massively with the regulatory part of it is, as I said earlier, is a huge piece of the puzzle that has proved challenging in the interim, Joanna. Whilst we await a more robust regulatory steer, how do we ensure alignment in the implementation, the interpretation of standards, so that we can keep moving in the right direction and we don't stall in the progress we've made to date?
I think that this is a really important and crucial question for all training organizations, especially, but also for operators. And here we need to hold two truths at the same time. And the first one is that technology is moving faster than regulation. And at the same time, for regulation to be formed, of course, it comes from IMO, and IMO as an organization has member states with different interests and sometimes conflicting interests as well. So it takes time for regulation to come into place. So what do we do in the meantime? And right now we do have the training obligations that are part of the IGF code, and we also have the interim guidelines as set out by the HCW 12. So right now we do have some guidance. Is it enough? That's a different story, right? And the other part of that equation is how flag states are interpreting those requirements. And we've seen that in some specific aspects, there are different interpretations of those requirements in many cases. So I think that in our industry, and in order to move forward, we need more open dialogue, and we need more open dialogue across all parties. It's not a question that can be solved just by a single actor in this industry. It is a question that has to be solved by each and every part of this industry. So we all have a part to play, and we've seen that also in the work that we've been part through the Marsk McKinney Moller Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, where many parts of the industry came together to have some recommendations around training and competency frameworks for alternative fuels, but also work around process safety management. And I think this is the important part and the important work that we need to do here. Also, us as a training organization, we've held an event for the Danish Maritime Authority and the Danish Institute for Firefighting, where we brought together companies that are starting their journey into decarbonization and into alternative fuels, to have an open discussion around the barriers that they are facing, especially on the human element. So I think that such initiatives are important, and other parts of the industry can possibly also facilitate such discussions. But yeah, I think it's not a question that can be solved just by a single one.
Sadly not, but thank you. Okay, so we're rapidly running out of time. I feel like I've taken us off on all sorts of different directions, and I'm not going to try and pull it together, but what I would like to do is take us back to the title of this panel is around a shared vision for technology, training and talent. So with that in mind, could I ask whether any of you have something you'd like to say to our previous panelists in terms of the technology, or is there, if there were one thing that you could see changed that would help us align our shared vision for technology, training and talent alignment, what would it be? So anything you'd like to particularly say to the OEMs, or what one thing would you like to see changed for better alignment?
Well, I guess there are many things that we want to tell, right? But I can start. So again, as a commercial training organization, we also hear a lot from our clients, and of course, there's also the cost perspective of the training. And I think that, in that equation, we also need to see the return of investment, right, of training. So, and I'm a bit of a pragmatist, right? And, it's good to see, all these discussions around competency, but at the end of the day, there are budgetary concerns as well for operators, right? So there is the compliance level and what we need to do there, and that's set out in the regulation, but there is also the competency development element, and I think that the expensive part of the training should focus on that competency development and on making sure that people have the right competencies on board, and that means also that they can be assessed on those competencies, because in many cases we think about how we are going to develop all those people, but at the same time we are not thinking about actual assessment of those critical competencies. So if any company is starting this training, I think they should see where they are, where their crew is at this moment of time, and where they would like to be. So yeah.
Right, I'm not going to put you all on the spot, but if you'd like to volunteer anything further, please do. You seem like you've got something there.
I do have a lot of things to say, but the only thing I will say is that in a forum such as this, we have such a wide range of stakeholders. We have got technology providers, we've got technology users, the shipping companies, we've got training heads, we've got people who are in a position to develop regulations and policy. So all I will say is that across industry collaboration is the way. Unless we listen to each other. Oh, I forgot to mention, we also have seafarer representative organizations as well here. So unless we all come together in forums and talk and discuss, it's going to be a very, very difficult journey ahead. But I'm heartened because at the start of this panel, there was a question, and if it's possible to display the response of that, I saw a beautiful bell curve on that, which shows that there is a lot of optimism. I think a lot of people think that ship's crew, shoreside staff are indeed going to be well equipped. It's a beautiful bell curve here. So it gives me hope that we can go ahead in this journey and we can ensure that we don't leave anything, any one person behind, which is essentially the gist of a just and equitable transition. Thank you.
Great notes. And can I just clarify, Rob? Is it 41% said yes to that question? Yeah. Okay. Not too shabby. Oh my gosh, I've got some terrible. That was me. Okay, super. Thank you all so much. I've overrun, so let's say thank you, and we are now moving on to.
Yes. No, just a big thank you, please. Thank you so much.